This title warning is here for a reason. This is an alternative way to pull apart a Trackmaster 2 Thomas where you separate the top from the running board. This method I classify as an adult method. You certainly need help in doing this. And it's a sort of method that it can really assist you in doing a very difficult job, but when it goes wrong, it'll turn the Thomas into a total train wreck. Let's do it, and let's do this very carefully. Well, hello there. Do you remember we pulled apart that Thomas there, installed a Five Nights at Freddy Nightmare Freddy at the front there? The most difficult part to that mod there is removing the running board from the Thomas. Taking the running board away can be very troublesome. There are things that I think are very important to do and things that are not so important to do. There is another way of removing the running board which does make it a bit easier, but it's a little bit more adult and you really need to get some adult help to do this, and that's why I'm pulling it away as a separate video. This Thomas here was pulled apart in a different way. I actually was able to pull it apart without drilling this area here, but I still say to you, you must drill these pegs out because sometimes these are glued up really well. This Thomas is an experimental one. When I was doing the high-speed Thomas, so it was a scrap Thomas to me, so I used it as a way to understand this new method. I could even pull off the face and the funnel here without doing all that drilling. It's got a lot of potential, this method, but it can also wreck your Thomas quite easily as well. This method has a fairly strange risk-reward equation going on because when it starts going wrong, well, you start destroying your model. It starts to take artwork off the Thomas here. Sometimes it's really nice to pull off parts without drill holes and bits missing from the back, and that's why I like this method, but you need to be really careful. And what I've got over the back here is a Thomas in box that we're going to come in, and I'm going to focus on removing the running board here, the things that I think are very important to do, and we're also going to come in and take off the face without drilling, I hope. With Thomas down on the bench here, we're going to come in and do a very special unboxing using a camouflage rubber chicken, yeah! And the secret to this method is to basically hit the right spot and get the chicken clucking as much as possible. Okay, here we go. Yeah, go chicken, go! Done it! Done it again! Whoa, that was an excellent unboxing. Thank you very much. Come here, chicken! Just while I've got the back of the packaging here to look at, there's just something that I'm noticing and I think it might be a bit sinister. I'll show you the engines which I rarely ever see. It's diesel 10. Maybe you can tell me what you see and don't see in store. Edward, and most particularly, and I've spoken about this before, Henry. Henry is missing in action. Okay, I better get back on track before we get too derailed talking about engines. This Thomas is actually damaged. It wasn't the chicken that did this damage here. Look at this here. The rod there has got marks on it, and this wheel is definitely not a free spinning sort of wheel. It's feeling very tardy. Yes, that's very strange. Let me just unscrew this and take a closer look at that. Well, here we are here. Go back and I'll show you the earlier bit of the video before the chicken started whacking. Look at that there. There's a great big welt. That means it's been bent, isn't it? On the connecting rod there. And then look at this axle. Wow. I've never seen one like this, and it makes the whole wheel dive like that. It's a real shonky Thomas, this one. Maybe this is just a spare parts Thomas by saying that. I'm pretty sure the chicken didn't do that, and that was definitely damaged. Before I started slapping at the chicken, I dare say the audience will have other things to say, won't they? Anyway, what we're going to do here is we are going to remove the running board here. We're going to probably come in and try and get Thomas's face off. But first off, we are going to drill these areas here, and I will give you a size now of what to do to get these areas drilled. Because I used my chemical method here on this Thomas here and pulled it apart without drilling, naughty boy, I noticed there are two different size pegs used on this design. The ones at the front are smaller. Drilling these is really important, even though I've been bullish here and I've done one without too much drilling and one broke. Once you drill these, and they can have glue up in there, that's like 50% of your battle done. And you've got to get the right size. So now I've got one pulled apart like this. I can start to see you need something which is going to basically not go down the hole because we've got to break away the area here. So you've got to get a drill bit which is sort of this size here, and we'll discuss what this size is, and that's a smaller peg than the back one, something that'll do both, okay. Normally on drill bits the size is on the shank area there, but this has been ripped to shreds by some maniac. If I bring in a set of calipers like this, I start to see a size. Okay, it's about a 5.4, call it a 5.5mm drill. And in Imperial it's something like that, but I can't read Imperial. Just like the other video where we pulled Tomas apart, I've got Tomas inverted on a bed of blue tack here. That's going to hold him nice and secure, and very carefully, especially these front holes, because you don't need to drill too far. I'm just going to do that. Okay, that one's done. This, and very carefully do it to the back ones as well. And with the back ones, it is a bit trickier because you sort of got to cock it over to the side and then start drilling down. So be very careful, nice and slow. Don't need to go too far. Okay, that one's done. And this one as well. You'll actually feel it release when you drill through. You've got to go sideways a bit and then down. Okay, that's it. So there's a nice look of the posts that have been drilled out. Maybe you could go with a slightly smaller drill bit there, maybe like a 5.2. Okay, but you need to clear this area. If you have any plastic which is lagging behind, it can really make a nightmare for you. Now the back one also needs to be totally free. When it releases, it makes a clicking sound. Okay, and you do need that larger drill bit on the back. I'm just lazy, so I'm not changing drill bits. Now what I've noticed with this model, and I discussed this in the other video, some of these models are very well glued and they can be a real fight to undo, and I showed you doing the twisting to try and assist in breaking the bond between the red and the blue. But this one here, without doing the twisting already, is starting to show signs of coming apart. So this one might be a bit of an easy one to pull apart. But we're going to move into a slightly different method using a chemical to release the bond between the red and the blue. And before I forget, I will give this model the twistos. I think that helps. Sometimes you hear something go crack, but that's actually a good sign. Okay, nice twisties. We've got the white mark starting there, but I can fix that. I've showed you that in the other video as well, didn't I? Okay, that might do it. Right. The product I'm going to use to help me here is acetone. You need to be careful with this. We're not going to use very much. It's a flammable liquid, and here's the sort of work that it can do. PVC pipe cleaner, fiberglass cleanup, and nail polish remover. Chemically, it looks like this, but I'll be honest here, that looks more like a train timetable to me. And my advice to you is go and read the Wikipedia page about acetone, because to tell you what, it is actually quite an interesting little everyday thing. Well, there's another picture of acetone. Well, to me that looks like a balloon sculpture. And under uses on the Wikipedia page, this is very interesting to read. About a third of the world's acetone is used as a solvent. And just reading under solvent there, it says to me, acetone is a good solvent for many plastics. That's what I want to hear. So this is the sort of job you need to be prepared for before you start doing it. And the first thing I've done is I've added a double layer here to protect my nice bench top, because the acetone will eat the pattern off this stuff here. Of course, I've got my acetone here. I will be decanting a small amount into here. You only work with tiny amounts. I've got my cotton buds or Q-tips, depending on where you live. Of course, I've got Tomas there waiting to be operated on. He's looking scared, isn't he? Nope. And I've got some rubber gloves, most importantly, to protect my fingies. Just going to back pour. Back pouring means you're pouring like that, so you don't get a massive splurge of it into the cup here. Very carefully, that's enough. So the glue bonded area that we're going to try and attack is this here. It goes in a strange pattern at the front here, goes straight down the sides, round the back there. And we're going to be very careful how we apply our acetone to this Tomas here, because if we start going crazy, we're going to destroy the whole model. With my little cotton bud in the background there, just going to put a bit of the acetone onto there. Okay, it's nice and wet, and I'm going to apply it on the inside here, and hopefully it's going to work its way down into the glue area. Now, it's a bit insidious the way this stuff works, because it leaches into areas very easily. You know, if you put masking tape on this stuff, all it will do is leach under the masking tape. And the other insidious thing about this stuff is it takes a little bit of time to activate. So initially you'll think, oh, nothing much is happening. It's one of these things, you just wait it out and the magic starts to happen for you. Now, the other important thing to do is not to turn Tomas upside down, or else this stuff will start leaching to parts where we don't want it to go. We want it to stay down in this area here. Now, when I did my first one, I was actually applying some of the stuff on the outside. It was actually a very tricky one to pull apart. Like I said, sometimes these models are really easy to pull apart, sometimes they're really hard. But I'm going to try and stick to the inside here this time around. Maybe you can see the cotton buds turn a little bit red as it starts to melt away at the plastic it's been touching. If you want to be daring and start to, well, play crazy, you can put a smear of acetone along here, but the problem is as soon as it touches any of this detail here, it's going to rip it straight off, so you need to be really, really careful. I'm going to try and focus on the inside here. Now the other peculiar part here is that as it dries it sort of reverts back to being a glue again, so there's this little sweet spot of time when you got to act when the solvent's doing its thing against the plastic, noticing that I'm always trying to keep Thomas down, so the acetone's always falling down in a sense, and I think pretty soon I'm going to come in and try and hoiking that running board off. It's a process where you need to pick the sweet spot of time when that acetone has been biting into that bond there, and one indicator when you start to see it work is if I start pulling it back there, I'm starting to see it free away. So this is going to make this job hopefully a lot easier, but I like to show a method where I'm not using acetone, which I've already done, because if this goes wrong you can really cause some damage to your model, so you need to be really careful. You can see it just pulling apart. And once I get the levers of the screwdrivers in there and very carefully lever in the right areas, I'll be able to get this running board off, hopefully without too much drama. And this is where I'm working against the acetone resetting the plastic, and the most difficult bond to break is up the front here, so I'm always very careful here. It's the most complex shape in a sense where the two interface, and for the fact it's tucked away under there, and I use a couple of different screwdrivers to get the work done here. I'm not sure whether I'll show you this whole procedure because you don't want to watch this whole thing, do you? Sometimes it can be painstakingly slow. Maybe I'll come in and reapply some acetone if I feel like I'm fighting with it too much. But acetone, it can be a friend, but it can quickly turn into your enemy. So you need to be really, really careful with it. This process is as much to do with getting the right tools in pulling this away as well. That's very important to point out. You'll get a feel for it. I mean, you literally got to destroy model first before you get a good process up, and the front is starting to come free. And it's a lot less fight than you saw in the other video where I didn't use the acetone. I've just got to make sure it's, yeah, there we go. It's a very different way of doing this, but man, you leach any acetone up here and your Tomas is wrecked. That's the problem with this method. You've got to try and do all your work on the inside here, and eventually it will come free. With the front area free, 95% of the battle is done. That's a really important bond to have broken. It was the acetone that did all the work on this one. To release the sides, I feel like I need to put some more acetone on. You get a feel for it. You start to see where it's dried up, in a sense, and where it's working for you. And really, you do this method once and then you get a real good feel for what you've got to do and what you've got to not do. And the really, really important part is to let the acetone do its work. Once you've applied it, you wait maybe 3-4 minutes and it will start to debond the red and the blue for you. And I would highly suggest this is definitely an adult method, because acetone can be a bit nasty when it gets a bit out of control, and it's one of these things, less is more, and understanding the time to wait. And like before, I can just get my screwdriver up there and hopefully it'll start debonding for me. You got to have a good feel, there we are, a good feel for this as well. You're not trying to force things, you're just being extremely careful. And it's weird because you can get a tear along there. Sometimes the blue will want to stay with the red, but don't worry, when it all goes back together, you barely notice it when we go and glue it back together, and we're just working our way up the back here. Very, very carefully. Always helps to get maybe a little screwdriver in there to help wedge things apart. But certainly a lot less of a fight than doing it without acetone. I'm just working from the back, just under where the driver would come into Tomas there. I'm just working away nice and slow. You can see the way it's pulling apart. Melting is one nice word for it, isn't it? Eh? Yeah, okay. I'd like you to see this, because then you say, but Leo's pulling tricks and he doesn't show us how it works. I'm hoping you see everything that goes on here. Working our way up here under the number 1 now. I think nearly the whole side is debonded. It is. There we go. Okay. It hasn't taken very long in real time. Of course, there's the 3 or 4 minutes I let the acetone do its work, and then, like I keep saying, you've got a window of opportunity to come along and get this undone. And I keep saying this, don't use too much acetone or you'll be crying, because your whole Tomas model will melt in your hands. It's one of these ones where you need to be really, really careful. Oh, he's free, look at that. The wonders of acetone, and caught on camera. There we go. It's free. Now with Thomas's running board removed, he's a different animal now. You can come in very carefully with a knife and remove some of the red plastic that will be lingering behind because the acetone has pulled it down. You'll find it's still soft, but just be very careful doing this. I'm not going to try and do it in front of camera because I'm looking down through camera. But you can come in and tidy up this. You can also come in and tidy up the running board. Noticing that it's been affected by the acetone on the inside, but the outside is still nice and gleaming and red. Mind you, we will be painting that white, won't we, boys and girls? But the next thing to do, and we are going to be extremely careful here, is separate this front boiler and face away. And we're going to very, very carefully apply some acetone into this area here. Now, just looking at my experimental Thomas, to perfect the method, if you put too much acetone in here, it leaches all around here and it'll bleed up here and it'll cause nothing but confusion and messy delay. The window of opportunity with this is quite fine. You need to have a real feel for this. We're going to leave her in there as we feel the acetone taking effect. And hopefully we're going to pull the Thomas face off this other Thomas here without doing the damage that I did to this one here. Well, before you go into battle, you got to know your enemy. I'm showing you the enemy in this next part. I've taken the boiler away and you get to see what I'm up against and how tricky this is to pull off. That's the shape there that is like an interference fit almost, that the Thomas face gets rammed into and it gets glued, and it actually goes all the way back here. Now, it's going to be very tricky to pull this off without causing a major disaster, but I'm going to have a go. Please wish me luck, Thomas. Always be fearful of failure. Well, I'm fearful at the moment. I'm just going to put some dabs of acetone in here, and hopefully it's not going to leach too far away. Oh, it's not going very well at the moment. Let me just make that go forward for a bit, and then I will be standing it on its edge to hopefully get the acetone down inside where I want it to be. I'm just leaving Thomas like that for a bit because I think I put a little bit too much acetone in there. And I know if it leaks any way back there, it's going to take out those red lines on top, so I'm being very careful. It's just a matter of waiting a bit of time for that acetone to bite. On my fail Thomas here, let me show you the method to my madness. I think it's called capillary reaction. When you put stuff here, it'll want to run up inside areas there which are nice and close together because that's what's going on there. So the acetone's there, hopefully runs up inside to where all that bonding's going on, and then in theory, and hopefully you can just quickly and easily pull the face off like that. And now just going back to the Thomas, well, which we're trying to pull apart, not destroy, and the acetone is hopefully taking its effect, and I'm going to try to attempt to start pulling this forward. Oh, I think this is the hardest thing of all to pull off. No pun intended. Maybe I'll start levering in there with a very small screwdriver, being extremely careful. And having a nice feel for it. I've got my gloves off because I really need to feel how this is pulling apart. There's something about when you put a pair of gloves on, you lose a lot of sensation. You need to really feel this. I need to really feel that bond starting to give, but the problem is I'm not feeling it giving at all. Maybe a bit more acetone is needed. Just putting a bit more acetone in there. I'm noting I'm keeping Thomas pointed forward. I don't want this stuff leaching back. Well, there's good news and bad news. This front piece is starting to come forward now. I think I've put a little bit too much acetone in there. You can see it breaking away there. Underneath Thomas's face there, you can see it's leached into there as well. Oh man, tricky. Maybe it is just easier to do the drill out method like I showed in the other video. It is, or mind you, it is also nice to pull things off as a component, isn't it? Yeah, it's starting to feel loose. Maybe it's starting to break. It's very tricky to do. I think this is the hardest thing to do in pulling apart this model. Getting the face off as one piece. Just coming back inside of a bit of screwdriver work. It's feeling horribly soft in there. So the acetone has been eating away things. Maybe things that I don't want to be eaten away. Oh, something's giving there. I can really starting to feel it move now. Be it good or be it bad. Ooh, okay, we're getting... Ooh. Okay, well that was a result. At least I got it on camera. It's actually just snapped that piece. That isn't exactly what I wanted to have happen, but it's melted it down, so we've been able to get the face off in, well, a bit of a different way, Thomas. Well, the face is coming off the front here. One thing I've just noticed is how easily affected this plastic here is with the acetone. A lot of it's leached down the front. Maybe leaning it forward has caused more trouble than what it was worth. Yeah, so I have to be very careful here. Thomas's face is looking a little bit sad and melted. Ugh. Maybe don't do what I showed in this video, just leave it upright. Definitely don't lean it back. If you lean it back, you end up taking out the artwork. At least I haven't destroyed this section here like I did with my first attempt. And while things are still soft, there's bits of Thomas's face that have been left here in a smear because the acetone has worked its wonders. I think in this video you get to see the dangers of acetone and how it can hamper you, but you can also see, if it's used very carefully, it can really assist you in pulling these models apart. Every time I pull a model down, I learn from my mistakes. Maybe next time with the acetone and pulling the face off, if you drill a hole here, a very careful hole, not too small and not too big, probably about 5.4mm, the same one you drilled these ones here with. If you put your acetone here, it's going to work directly into the area here. What do you think? I'm almost tempted to go and try that myself, hey? Because this area here doesn't look like it's debonded at all. All the acetone did was it ate away the plastic here. With another Tomas that has been pulled down, I'm going to venture into something that I discussed or touched upon in the other video in a slightly different way of setting Tomas up as a FNaF character. You might like this. Well, like some bizarre magic show, I have glued the running board back on there. I've painted it white like a good boy. I've given the buffers details that the toy companies seem to think are not important anymore. They are important, boys and girls, aren't they? In the previous video when we made that Freddy over the back there, do you remember I showed a Pez on the front of the Tomas here? You can easily manipulate a Pez to look totally awesome. Plus it gives me a minion tag. That was rather despicable of me, wasn't it? Anyway, now I've got that out of my system, I can now toy with the idea, again, sorry for the pun, of doing what I discussed when we did this mod here. Remember I spoke about putting the FNaF head, figurehead, back where the boiler is? Well, guess what? I've got an opportunity to do that now, don't I? And I think this may look wonderful. I'm going to choose a golden Freddy here. People have been telling me these Funko pens are a bit hard to find. Yes, they are. I agree with you there. Again, we get an insight into the franchise. Notice there's nothing inside Freddy's brain there. And even saying that offends people, doesn't it? It's weird the way the world works these days. But with that hole there, and I did use a Dremel. I used drills plus a Dremel to make it nice and big. Look at this, boys and girls. Look at this. And as I said in the other video, Freddy's hat becomes like Thomas's funnel. And I'll take it around the front here. I think, now that I've done this, I think this actually looks better. And if I get it up straight, that looks better, isn't it? That looks better than that, but maybe I'll get the turntable out and you see the toys running, you'll be able to work it out for yourself. Now, the other nice thing about this way is that for the fact that all I've done is I've drilled a hole, it's a nice tight interference fit, you could get other characters and you could drill a hole and you could put it on there to be something different. Now, if you recall up the start of the video, the core of this thing had this strange axle damage. And people say, oh, but the rubber chicken did that. This was there before I unboxed with the chicken, I can tell you. And the fact, I've never seen an axle this sloppy and loose. Never seen that before on these toys. It's like, man, I should have left this in box maybe. With markings like that, I should have just left it in box. Let me show you this down on the bench. There it is on the bench. Look how that has bent over. That's wrong, and I say it's wrong because if I bring in another one, that was from my experimental one when I was doing the acetone experiment, notice it doesn't want to kill the wheel over. The axle on this thing here is busted. Never seen that before on a toy that's come new out of box, mind you. There'll be the argument, the rubber chicken did it. But again, the rubber chicken never did that damage there. That was there before the chicken slapped it. There's always some weirdo controversy going on. I will get the core, I'll use in the other core actually, the core from the one which hasn't got a bent axle into this golden Freddy Tomas, and I'll carefully do this screw up. Well, I'm really pleased that I've done this other variant because now I see them side by side. I tell you which one I think looks better. I'm thinking it's the golden Freddy one, and having the hat as almost like a funnel, it somehow works. Okay, but you sort of got to go there to work that out. Let me just spin around the other way with the Thomases lined up the front. Yes, now I see it like this. To me, this Nightmare Freddy is sticking out a little bit too far. Maybe you can have your say on that. And looking at the front, it's probably not going to look much different, is it? No, from the front, you can barely tell. And maybe the thing that's going to make these toys really shine is to get them up and running on the turntable. I'll get the Nightmare Freddy going first, and then the Golden Freddy. And the Nightmare Freddy is going to sing faster because it's on a tighter bit of track going around the inside. And now I'm seeing it like this. I definitely think that this looks much better by having the, well, basically the head as the boiler and the hat as the funnel. I really think that looks like Thomas in FNaF mode. And there is the other one coming through, and looks like the face is just stuck on the front there, doesn't it? Yes, if I probably was going to do more in the strangest way, I'm probably going to do it like this Golden Freddy, just letting Golden Freddy catch up here. To me, that seems to work much, much better. I've never quite got used to the lumpiness of Trackmaster 2, and that's what it does all the time, believe me. There's a pair of them together there. Yes, I think the Golden Freddy is definitely the winner. Just out of utter stupid curiosity, this is the core of what was that toy there, but it came out of the box looking a bit worse for wear. If I get on the tracks there, have you ever seen anything like that? Look at that front wheel right there. It's leaning right over in the strangest way. It's not a lumpy runner. Maybe that's the secret to having a broken axle. And if you see it from the front there, you can see how that wheel's looking very tragic. Never seen that before, but mind you, you don't often see the core of the Trackmaster 2 running without their tops on. It's about to slam to the back of Golden Freddy. And then Trackmaster 2 style is starting to go a little bit silly, but hey, we're used to that now. Let me just carefully pluck a Nightmare Freddy off here, and I'm just trying to install. I just lost a bit of rolling stock there off the side. Let me just see that running next to Golden Freddy. I think Golden Freddy is slowly catching up. Okay, here we go, side by side-ish as best as I can, and you start to see just how different the two look together. The real problem with that mod there, doing with Acetone, is it is really an adult job as far as I'm concerned. That's why I didn't show it in the original version, which was this one here. I did it the hard way there, and the problem with, well, the hard way is, it is actually hard. Again, it's almost an adult job. I couldn't imagine my son doing that job. But with the Acetone, the problem is that if it goes wrong, you basically destroy all your line work on the model there. You start melting things that you don't want to have melted. You've got to be really, really careful. And, well, it's just going weird now. That thing just derailed for a second. Now it's trying to play catch-up. Yes, as I said earlier in the video, it's really a risk-reward sort of thing, and we're about to get a lot of risk here because that has just rammed the back of the Golden Freddy wagon off. And in the strangest way, the Nightmare Freddy has been able to catch up, and now we've got the strangest bit of Thomas stuff on the tracks here that you're ever going to see. Isn't that right, Golden Freddy? Well, I know Gordon is often the party starter. If I get Gordon going on this track without causing too much confusion and delay, I'm sure he's going to ramp up the action for us, because he always does. Okay, go, Gordon, go! Hold the indignity! Now I've got two of these FNaF Thomas critters to deal with. Hold the indignity! Gordon coming around again. Ooh, will he be able to get these FNaFs off the rails? Get this nightmare stuff off these tracks now! Come on, Gordon, do your magic. Oh, doesn't like it, does he? Here he comes around. You're going to try and give it the slip. Gordon, you're letting me down! Come on, Gordon, give it the nudge. You can do it. Get this FNaF stuff off the rails now! He didn't do it, Gordon! What's up with you? Something's got to give, because I know Gordon can't stand this modded stuff on the tracks. In true Trackmaster 2 style, it has derailed the front of Gordon, and Gordon is going to come up and give this FNaF stuff a bit of a slap now. And in the end, something usually is going to go wrong. It will go wrong because this Trackmaster, oh, Nightmare Freddy's not liking the shove there from Gordon. And I'm pretty sure Gordon's going to get really sick and tired of this custom work up on the tracks. Hold the indignity! Get off the lines, FNaF Thomas! I can't stand you any longer! Get off the line! Oh, almost got there! Come on, Gordon, you can do it! You can do it! He's almost there! Oh, it's so close! Come on, Gordon! You can do it! He's really trying his hardest to get this Nightmare Freddy off the rails! Come on, Gordon! He's pushing and pushing, getting up as much steam as he possibly can! You can do it! Oh, he's done it! Now for the Golden Freddy! Now for the... Oh, no! It's still on the tracks! It is still on the tracks! We're out of my way! Well, Golden Freddy there isn't looking that happy. I'd say that Trackmaster 2 Gordon has got a victory there. Well done, Gordon, well done. Oh, the indignity! This FNaF stuff can just get right off the rails. 5 nights at Freddy, Thomas is down. 5 nights at Freddy, Thomas is down. Anyway, this very, very messy train wreck, I'll turn that off and get this back on track. You can see where my Halloween train for this year's going, can't you? And I've got other characters I need to do. I've actually chosen a comment from the other video of someone who gave a great idea for changing the characters over, and one last time we'll just get these toys up and running if I'm fast enough. And I'm probably not. Oh no. Okay, it's going to get messy. It always does, doesn't it, FNaF Thomas? It always gets very messy. And it always helps if Gordon's having a go as well, because he's a troublemaker. Well, Gordon works his way around. He often gives things a bit of a nudge in the way Gordon works, because Gordon is Gordon. Gordon's the boss. Doesn't like anyone else around by the looks of it. And sure enough, Gordon's up to his old tricks. He's going to come along, smack things down. Look at that. Off the rails there, Golden Freddy Thomas. Trying to really think what these are called now. And he's going to nudge at the back there and work this thing out. Aren't you, Gordon? You don't give up until it's off the rails. You hear that, Freddy? Does Freddy look worried? Well, he's got his eyes shut by the looks of it. Come on, Gordon, weave your magic. I know you do it oh so well. You've showed us how awesome you are every single time. Hold indignity! Oh, there you go, just wacko. What's this dumb wagon doing in my way? Get out of my way! This is my railway, and I don't want any more FNaF Thomas stuff clogging the railways. Out of my way! Well, there's one thing I've learned about Gordon is he's really persistent. He just doesn't give up until it's off the rails. Out of my way, you FNaF rubbish! Go for it, go! Oh, and Gordon breaks through again. Well done, Gordon. Well, watching Gordon's antics there, maybe that's a lesson in life. You have winners and you also have losers. Well, we can't have the trains laying us train wrecks all the time, can we? Let me get this back up on track. Let me turn Gordon off because he's been, well, naughty and sort of epic in the same way. And let us rejoice at that toy mod there, because I think I've got a little beauty on my hands there. On the previous video, there was a query from a YouTuber if I can work out the name. I've got to drill into the comments and find the name, and I'll put it up in the video in this section here. And they said, Leo, can you take a look at Hurricane to see how hard it is to pull Hurricane apart? I read your comment, it got me curious. I went out and bought another Hurricane. It didn't bother me because I like the rolling stock in this set. Excellent rolling stock, it's those lava cars there. Well, here's Hurricane. Strangely, they have decided to paint the buffers on there. That's unusual, isn't it? Let's just do a very quick open up here before we finish the video and see what's going on between the bond between the top and the bottom of this character. In fact, looking at Hurricane, this might be the perfect model to learn a technique, because Hurricane's sort of grubby and got bits pulled down, so if you make mistakes on Hurricane, you could sort of possibly hide them easier than, let's say, a Thomas, Percy, whatever else. Underneath here, I can see the same sort of thing going on as I saw underneath Thomas. You would drill out those there. I dare say at the same size I discussed in this video. You'd also come and drill out the back ones here. Again, you'll have to come in sideways first and then drill straight. Very carefully. The same on that side there as well. And it looks the same in the way that it pulls apart. So that chocolatey brown is different to the black, as I'm calling it black. It's actually more of a grey. Yes, you could probably do the acetone thing, being very careful, of course. But it looks very similar. The thing about Trackmaster 2 is this core section seems to define every one of the engines, because they're all basically the same core. And I think the split here would also be here as well. The boiler section there would split away. I hope. I haven't done this, so I hope I'm right here. And I can only assume Hurricane's face is held on the same as Thomas, but you can't see that while we've got this section here. I dare say it's the same sort of design going on underneath there. Just looking at the front of Hurricane, I know the temptation for many people is, oh, I'll just come along and I'll just bend this down and I'll be able to rip it off. What you'll do is you'll just break it. You've got to come along and you've got to take out these pegs, because if they're glued in, you're never ever going to get this free. Yes, I think that's the line there on Hurricane, goes all the way here, And then there's the other bit that comes off at the front there. Yes, I suppose with the Hurricane it's difficult to tell because it's all sort of dark colours. You haven't got the bright and the other bright colour to see the seam lines and stuff. Trackmaster 2 stuff's all sort of the same. I think the strange one, and I remember looking at it and I failed on one, was Devious Diesel. It seems to be done very differently. I hope that helps the person who asked about the Hurricane. And I should finish this video, but I will show you inside Devious Diesel to show you that I'm not telling fibs. That's what it looks like inside. Yeah, what's going on inside there? I can't see anything to drill. I can't see any sort of split line on this either, and I think I've attempted to take a face off and remove this part here, and I had totally failed. So be very careful if you start playing with Devious Diesel.